Hey guys, what's up? It's Dominick from Wicked Garden and welcome to Brutal Truth. So basically what happened a couple of weeks ago is I put up a Facebook post saying how I was going to start a blog called Everything You Want to Know About the Music Business, but you were too afraid to ask, so you ask me and then you ignore what I tell you anyway. And I kind of meant it as a joke. But a bunch of people responded and said, you know what, that's not a bad idea. So I thought about it for a little bit and said, well, the best way to do this is probably to make a video. So I'm uploading it here to the Wicked Garden channel. If you guys like it, please like and subscribe it. Of course, on this channel we have our band videos, live performances, and stuff like that. But this will be part of it as well, and you'll be helping not only me, but also the band. You can also check out some of our videos on this channel. I'll put some links down at the bottom, and we're going to get right into it. So I decided the best way to do this is to kind of go with 5 misconceptions that people have about their band and the music business. Now, I'm going to put this out there really quick. I am not an expert in anything, but I do have experience in this business. I've been doing it for a long time with various degrees of little to no success. But I have done some things that some people haven't done, so I have a little bit of an insight. The other thing to remember too is that this is basically focused towards people who are in bands. This is not necessarily for solo artists, rappers, things like that. I'm not saying you couldn't use some of this, but the reality is that it's kind of a different monster, okay? So to get right into it, we're going to go with number 1. Biggest misconception that people have is that, 1, my band is a democracy. If there's ever a way for your band to completely fail before it even gets out of the gate is to use that term that you are a democracy. You're not. And here's why. Let's say you have a typical band like Wicked Garden, which has 4 members, okay? 4 members generally have 4 different ideas of what they want to do. If you decide to do things diplomatically and say, okay, well, we're all going to vote on everything, guess what? There's going to be plenty of times where you have 4 guys vote for their ideas. Or you're going to have a 2-and-2 split. Maybe not as much, okay? So, how do you get through this? Well, the first thing is that you have to have a basic idea of what you want to do. And generally, if you're in a band with 3 or 4 other people, you already have that. But what you have to understand is that somebody has to have some type of vision. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be a dictator where it's like everything I say goes. But somebody basically has to have an idea of this is what we're hoping to achieve and how we're going to get there. And if everybody else can get behind them, then that person is kind of like a de facto leader, okay? In Wicked Garden, the majority of the ideas are run through myself and Shawn, okay? As far as songwriting and everything, we're going to get to that a little bit later, but I'm talking about the actual basic ideas and where you want to go, okay? If you decide that everything that your band is hoping to accomplish is going to be voted on in a way, you're never going to get anything done. Find that 1 or 2 people that have not only an idea but a plan. If you can fall behind them, great. It doesn't make you any less of a member, not by a long shot. Matter of fact, it probably makes you more important because while they're going off thinking about how to do promotions and stuff like that, you can concentrating on the most important thing, which is making music. So, democracy doesn't work. You're a republic, kind of like America, and hopefully it works out for you. Now, the second misconception that people have with bands is how that they are going to split everything and they're going to do it evenly and that it's going to be fair. And that sounds really good only one time in your life, and that's when you are broke, okay? Once money gets involved, then things start getting corrupted. It doesn't mean that people are going to try to rip you off, because they will, but I'm talking about the members of your band specifically. What is going to happen is that when you guys have $0 and you are making $100 at a gig and you decide you're all going to get $25 each, that's fine, okay? And if your band never reaches a level where there's actual real money coming in, you're probably going to be okay. The issue is that if you are lucky enough to do something that involves a major portion of income coming into the band, that is where the problem is going to start. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are the songwriter of the band and you write a song that becomes a hit and it gets licensed for a movie and you're going to make $100,000. Sounds great, right? Now, keep this in mind. You have decided years ago when your band was so struggling in the garage that you guys are going to split everything evenly, okay? So that $100,000 that comes in is now going to go to 4 other people. But what if you have a manager? You probably do. Do you have a publisher? They're probably taking a percentage as well. You may have an agent. You may have a lawyer that's going to take a percentage because they had to negotiate the deal. That $100,000 gets whittled down pretty quickly. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that you got $100,000. Now you got to pay your agent 10%. You got to pay your manager 10%. So there's $20,000 already gone. You got to give the lawyer 5% for negotiating the deal. Now you're at $75,000. And now out of that $75,000, you're going to split that 4 ways evenly. Okay, so roughly $17,500 each. Still a good chunk of money if you've never made any in your life. But you're that songwriter. You're the person that wrote all the lyrics. You wrote the melody. Maybe you wrote the actual parts and showed it to the guys in the band. That actually happens a lot. Okay, you may think right now that I have no problem giving that money to somebody else. But eventually what's going to happen is the money's going to start coming in and you're going to realize I'm giving away 80% of what I'm making to people who aren't doing what I'm doing. If you had negotiated and worked this out before any money came in, you wouldn't have this problem. Okay? Generally, you're going to have 1 or 2 main songwriters in a band. And that means that they're going to get money through publishing, through sync licensing, things along that nature. Okay? What you need to do is find out how you're going to split that up before you make any money. Now, Wicked Garden has something that is already in place, and I don't think I'm giving away any of our secrets by sharing what we do. And basically how we do it is the songwriter gets the songwriter's portion, 50%. The rest of the band splits the other 50% for publishing. So if the band makes $1,000, let's just say, on a song that I wrote, I get $500 off the top because that's my songwriting percentage. We own our own publishing. We're one of the, a lucky band that can do that. So the other $500 gets split up between the other 4 members of the band. This was something we negotiated before we even signed a record deal, before we signed a publishing deal, anything along those lines. This is what we talked about. In my opinion, it's the fairest way to do it, but it may not work for you. This is only just to let you guys know that this is a problem that you're most likely going to into, which leads us to our third point of misconceptions in the band. And the third thing is with misconceptions is that everybody is the songwriter. Everybody gets a songwriting credit for every song we do. You are going to find that that is going to cause a huge problem. Maybe not now, but again in the long run. Okay? How it should work. A person that walks into a rehearsal and says, "Hey, I wrote this song. Here's the guitar parts. Here's the song. Here's the lyrics. Here's the melody." They are the only songwriter. Okay? They came up with everything. Now, let's say you're having a jam session, you guys are at rehearsal, and all of a sudden the bass player starts playing something, the drummer starts following behind him, guitar player starts playing, the singer just starts, rapping over it, whatever it is, and it becomes a song. Great, congratulations, all 4 of you wrote that. You should get a percentage of that. It may seem like you're kind of nitpicking in this situation, but the reality is this could lead to a problem later on. Like we said, there have been plenty of bands. Matter of fact, if you own any albums from the mid-'80s, okay, look at, like, say, Guns N' Roses' first album. Look at, I'm just using that as an example, but, like, that's a good one that sticks out in my mind. If you look at the first album, it usually says, all songs written by Guns N' Roses, or all songs written by whatever the band was called. That all changes by the second album. The second album, now it's listed by individual people. Why? Because the money started coming in. Like I said, somebody wrote the majority of that stuff and realized they had to give away 80% of it. It's going to cause an issue. Nobody wants to talk about money in the music business, but the reality is that if there is money to be made, and it's hard to do, you're eventually going to have an issue with it. So set that up now. The guy that writes the song, the guy that writes the melody, the guy that comes up with the chord progression, that is the songwriter. If somebody adds a part to that, then by all means they should get some type of a credit. How we do it in our band is that if you add a significant part to that song, that original song, if you make a change and it changes it significantly, you get an equal part. So if I come in with a song completely done and then Shawn says, "Hey, you know what? I think we should change the chord progression from C, D, E to D, E, C," Shawn now gets 50%. That's how that works, okay? It's something that, again, nobody really likes to talk about because everybody believes that when we get to the level of making any type of money whatsoever, we're going to be able to handle this, and you're usually not ready for it. Okay, so now number 4, biggest misconception in the music business, that a guy's going to show up at your show in a stretched limousine with a cigar and a big piece of paper that says contract in it and a sack full of money, and he's going to go, "All right, boys, I want you to make a record." Not going to happen. It very rarely happened back in the days when people said it happened. Okay? Most record deals where people were discovered, it was a really good story to tell the magazines, okay? A lot of these bands made years and years of demos, and they made tons of contacts, and eventually somebody took a shot. Or, you could be like Maroon 5 and your uncle's the head of, Universal Records, but I digress. Record labels, especially for rock music these days, they're not coming to find you, okay? They may come sniffing around if you have any type of independent success. And at that point, you should be established enough where you can get a lawyer and decide whether this is the best idea, the best move for your band to make. They will not listen to you at this point. You want to know why? You're probably not on TikTok or Instagram. And you're like, well, what does that have to do with music? Believe it or not, TikTok and Instagram are the two biggest purveyors of music these days. It's not Spotify, it's not Amazon, it's not Apple, it's TikTok and Instagram. When you go on your Instagram feed to check out stuff and all of a sudden you're just bombarded with these ads for these rappers and for these musicians, that's where it all comes from. That's how the young kids process music these days. If you're a rock musician like me, and let's be fair, I'm not a young rock musician, this is kind of alien to us because we discovered music through the radio and through MTV, two things that just don't exist anymore. Okay? The record labels are looking for a way to make money off of you, and most of that has nothing to do with your music. If they find out that they can make you a product, okay? If they find out that they can use your likeness for t-shirts, for fragrances, for sports drinks, that's where the money is these days. You're not making it off of the music business. You know why? Nobody buys records anymore. So record labels for themselves, the major labels, the Universals and the Capitals and the Warner Brothers and all that stuff, they're not going to bother with rock bands with guys that basically look like me. What are you going to do? You're going to sell a fragrance with my picture on it? Nobody wants to smell like me. Trust me, okay? So if you're thinking that someday you're going to stumble into a club and the A&R guy from Universal is going to walk in and go, you're the greatest band I've ever seen, here's our contract, it's never going to happen, guys, okay? You need to work. And what you need to do is you need to probably put out your own music first, or you can do what we did and sign with a small independent label, okay? Just because you're on a small independent label doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to do anything for you, give any type of success. The biggest way to figure out is if a label can help you is find out what you can accomplish by yourself, okay? You might be able to make a whole record, and you might be able to get it printed up and pressed out in CDs or whatever you want to do, and you can absolutely get it uploaded to Spotify and Apple within 10 minutes these days. You can do it on your phone, for crying out loud. Can you market it after it's out there? I don't know how many people that I've seen put out records or singles onto Spotify and Apple and all that, and they don't market it, and then 6 months, a year later, nobody's listening to it. They have 0 streams, okay? Just because you put it out there doesn't mean they're going to find it. 40,000 songs are uploaded a day to Spotify. That's a lot. You have to get through a lot of crap. And I say that figuratively, but I also kind of mean it literally, because there's a lot of bad stuff that gets uploaded to Spotify, and the reason why is because anybody can do it these days. There's really no filter. As long as you're able to mix it to the parameters that they need it, they'll let you put it up. So now you're fighting through 40,000 releases in a day. If you have a label behind you, they're probably going to make you a deal, something like this, which is called a distribution deal. Well, they'll say, you guys pay for the recording, we'll make sure it gets onto all the major sites and into stores, and then we're also going to pour some marketing money into it, and then we're going to split profits at a predetermined amount. It's not a bad deal. It's sometimes maybe the only deal you could find. And in my opinion, it's actually better than the deals that were coming out in the 80s and the 70s and even the 90s. I had some of those deals, and it's like, it's not good. Basically, when you signed a major label record deal back in the day, you were taking out a high-interest loan. You don't realize it, but they're sitting there going, we're going to give you $500,000, and you're thinking, all right, I'm set for life. You've got to pay that back. And your contract is structured so poorly that you'll never pay it back unless you sell tens of millions of records. Okay? There's plenty of other channels and videos on this subject that I don't have to rehash it, but it's the truth. They gave you a $500,000 advance. They're selling you records where you get paid $1 per record. And trust me, if you sell 500,000 records, that doesn't mean you've paid it off, because they're not taking their dollar from each one. They're going to make sure they recoup all their cost first, and then they'll start taking your dollar. And then once you paid off your $500,000, now you make a profit. Just the other day, the guy from Chevelle came out and said they sold 6 million records and never made a dollar from the record sales. And I have friends that are like, I don't believe that. I'm like, yeah, I believe it. It's absolutely, probably 100% true. Okay? Now, does that mean they made zero money whatsoever? No, they probably made money from publishing. They probably made money from touring and merchandising. But as far as the record sales themselves, no, they didn't have it. So, if you're going to sign with a label, make sure you do your research first. Get a lawyer if you need to. That's important. And that leads us to our final misconception of the music business for today. And the misconception is, once I put a record out, everything's going to be great, and I'm going to get a Lamborghini and a really hot girlfriend. No, no, and definitely not no. Okay? Just because you put something out, you are probably never going to see any money from it. If you do see any money from it, you're not going to see anything for about 12 to 18 months. Okay? First of all, if you're putting any type of music out on any type of aggregator, Spotify, if you're using DistroKid, things along those lines, you got to make sure that you're signed up with a performance society, ASCAP or BMI. They're the ones that are actually going to collect those royalties for you. Okay? And they're going to collect them worldwide. Now, the issue is they get paid in a very trickle-down way, and then they trickle that down back to you. Some countries may not pay their royalties for a year, and then it takes BMI 6 months to process that. So 18 months later, you're finally getting your royalties. Okay? To put up music through an aggregator and not be registered with BMI or ASCAP, you're literally just throwing your money away. You want to be hooked up with Sound Exchange. They're gonna look at the internet radio for you, things along those lines. These are processes that don't take much time. They do take a little money, but they're a hassle. And especially today, where there's so many different channels to have music on, it can take a long time. So you definitely want to get one of those. But are you going to make money? No, probably not. Wicked Garden has now streamed almost 1 million times across every single platform. We're talking Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Deezer, Tidal, a couple of ones that you'd never heard of that only exist out in Asia. So across all of those, we've been streamed about 1 million times. We have barely made a few $100s. And again, we own all our own publishing. Okay? The breakdown is extremely small because Spotify is only going to pay you like 0.03 of a cent for each play that you get. But what they don't tell you is that you don't get that full amount. How Spotify works is it's an aggregator. What they're going to do is they're going to take all the musicians that have released music through them and got streamed, and they're going to say, well, who got the most streams? Well, they're going to get a bigger percentage of the pie. So if you're a guy like, a band like us that has 500,000 streams on Spotify, we're in one of the lower tiers. We're getting a very small amount. Keep in mind too that 10 of the songs that we released were released through a label, so we have to split that money with the label. So we're getting an even smaller amount, okay? You're not going to be a millionaire, especially if you're in a rock band. Those days are done, guys, all right? The Sunset Strip, it sunsetted a long time ago. If you're in this for the money, you're definitely in it for the wrong reasons, plain and simple, okay? You can have fun. You can make a little money. We make our money on live shows and merchandise. All right, it's not enough for us to quit our day jobs. By all means, we're all still going to work in the morning, but we've gotten to the point now where we can make enough money to finance what we want to do next, which is going to be another album, hopefully. So if you go in there with a belief system that you're going to be a rock star and a millionaire and you're going to have girls and cars and all that stuff, you're definitely in this for the wrong reasons, guys. It takes a lot just to make a small dent in what's going on these days, especially if you're in a rock band. So we're going to leave it at that. I plan on doing this as a series. Probably in a week or two we'll upload another video. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. I'll definitely read them. And if you have any suggestions or questions that you want answered, I'll be happy to do that as well. Again, please like and subscribe and share this video. And check out some Wicked Garden stuff while you're here. Thanks a lot. See you next time.